Hello world, I am Hump, designed and demonstrated by camera cowering Mr. Brainfart. My namesake implies my deviating from my ancestor Mahjong in speed and structure. I play in body count from 2 to 6, best at 4. I am the storyline. Players' objectives, however, are the same. Begin with 13 card hands and complete them as 14 to 18 card hands of various sets and patterns. Pause and rewind how Brainfart gives my box motion sickness while revealing its face's texts and plain graphics. Let's begin with a 4-player opening. Brainfart set me up off camera. Against my ancestors' zero-sum scoring, everyone starts at 0 points. Players score points even in quaint and quotidian draw and discard activity. Depending on body count, whoever either picks an East seat card or a small cardboard piece marked with a 1 starts the game. Gameplay cycle always flows clockwise. Here East, the position on the right, starts the game. Hurry up, Brainfart, and start East's initial move. Any player on their turn, if they have 2 face-down hole cards, must first flip them and then play. Their opponents may use them, yet players cannot use cards from their own discard pools. On a cyclically common turn, the active player chooses any one of 3 actions. They either draw the top stock card, extract one of their own cues into their hand, which ought to be done sparingly due to endgame reward decrease, or take any opponent's face-up discard. At this time, East cannot take and decides to draw. Each time the active player discards, they score 1 point. Though petty, nonetheless, it's still progress. Once the active player discards, their opponents can steal the discard to either partially or completely fulfill a hand. For now, none of East's opponents need the discarded south card. The south card can now and later instead be taken. Now it's South's turn. They first flip their whole discards. Then they draw and resolve their turn. One set type is an optional quad of 4 naturally identical cards. Since South has a concealed quad of blue 3 lights, they call quad, reveal all 4 cards as proof, spread and commit the set face down, and immediately play again. South drew a dis, which I will later explain. Passive, drawing and discarding, is the most frequent action players will perform until one calls another's discard. Here's a calling example. North needs South's recent 7 limbs discard to fulfill a set. I prioritize calls first by fulfillment, full or part, and then by farthest clockwise distance from the recent discarder's position. North calls part, reveals 2 natural cards that link the 7 limbs, 6 and 8 limbs for a run, grabs the 7 limbs, lays and commits the run on their play area, discards another card from their hand, and scores 1 point. West would typically reveal their whole cards before North. However, due to being skipped, West leaves their discards face down. As a penalty, calling helps thine opponents. All other players score 1 point. Each skipped player between the discarder and the farthest caller adds an additional point. West gains 2 points for doing nothing. East and South score 1 point apiece. Though not shown on this demo, calling full on a discard doubles point penalties. 2 or 4 points per player instead of 1 or 2. Play commonly returns to the next player. In this case, play returns to East, as no one else calls North's 9 lights. Multiple players need West's recent 7 lights discard. 2 opponents call part. The caller farther away takes priority, becomes the active player, and gains the 7 lights. Stay tuned for the result. East was the clockwise farther player from West. East built a 7-8-9 lights run, discarded an 8 limbs, and scored a point. South and West scored 1 point, North scored 2. Now it's back to common play. I skip a bit more. It's a bit later in the demo. Here's an example of a take. South has just discarded a red 5 lives. West needs it but can't call for it, and no one else can either. Instead, West must take it. West announces taking a card and puts South's 5 lives in their hand. However, West's take action boosts South's score. As a penalty, South gains 3 points. Be back soon. Here's a critical moment that closes this demo's first hand. North just discarded a 4 lives, which no one calls. East needs either of 2 cards to complete and submit their own hand. East sees an autumn marked with a leaf motif, from North's discard pool and takes it. Now East completes their hand and calls full. East must reveal the hand's entirety, exposed sets and in-hand cards as proof. East calculates the hand's value by cue use and patterns. Thou must decide when to juggle using cues for collecting earlier bonus cards by the table's center versus retaining them for a potentially higher endgame credit. Here's a close-up of East's hand. 2 runs, 2 triplets, and 1 pair. Of Ditz's 4 sub-functions, time works best to amplify the autumns. This hand scores 19 points, 10 for no cues and 9 in patterns. Instead of resetting the entire table for a new hand, East cleans up their own play area, hand and discards. East shuffles all those cards and covers them face up below the submission pile's cover card. East collects bonus card 1 and stashes it face down on their play area. Meanwhile, everyone else must catch up in battle over submitting hand number 2 and collecting bonus card number 2 down to 55 points. Now East must spend their next 3 turns, common and or skipped, drawing 5-card bundles till they have 15 cards. Upon having 15 cards, they must immediately discard any 2 cards face down to start a new hand and get back in the game. All of these types of moves display what happened throughout a game. Once any player submits their 3rd hand and collects their 3rd bonus card, I stop. Everyone scores 2 final endgame rewards, a square deal by one's remaining cue count, and the sum of their bonus cards' values. Whoever scores the highest grand total wins. My manual's 32nd page mentions tie-breaking. This ends my demo. Download my rules and player aid templates. Read their material and decide whether to purchase me. Hurry up, Mahjong players. Toodles.